Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there tonight. Had yourselves a fantastic Friday, and I hope everyone has been having a great start to the weekend out there so far. Here to break down the latest on the tropics, and there's a lot to talk about. There's three different areas to watch for, but one is going to be the majority of our focus in this video, and that is what is Tropical Depression 2 now. So it is a depression, and it's not only forecast to become a tropical storm, but a hurricane, our first hurricane of the 2024 hurricane season. But like I said, there is two other areas to watch. One that's been with us for quite some time in the Caribbean, and they've actually bumped this up from a 30 to a 40% chance to develop into a depression or a tropical storm sometime in the next few days, as it will have another opportunity once it sneaks into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. But there's also a way behind Tropical Depression 2 that has a lot of interest off the models. So we're going to speak a little bit on that also, kind of as we're speaking on Tropical Depression 2. But this is some wild stuff, guys. This is definitely not common in this portion of the hurricane season. I mean, we're technically still in June. We're thinking that this hurricane is going to probably form maybe the first day of July, second day of July, but this is wild, guys. So we're going to get very detailed, give you the latest from the National Hurricane Center, talk about what's going on with this system right now. We're going to talk about the model guidance, compare the GFS with the Euro, and why I favor one over the other. And then we're going to go over kind of the environmental conditions, the atmospheric background of this system, and talk about why this favors gradual development into a tropical storm and a hurricane over the next few days. You know, what's going on out there that's creating such a favorable environment to eventually strengthen this into a hurricane. We're going to get deep into that, kind of nerd out on you guys, so stay tuned for that. Timestamps will be up throughout the entire video for you to take advantage of if you just want to hear certain parts. I don't blame you. But they'll definitely be there for you guys to skip ahead to one portion of the video or the other. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling tonight. So this is the entire Atlantic Basin, and this is basically showing us where there's a lot of shower and storm activity, convection. So where you see these blacks and whites and almost purples right in here, that indicates colder cloud tops, which means we have taller convection, which means we have more robust convection, stronger convection, shower and storm activity. So I'm going to circle a couple areas here on the map. The first one is this. This is our tropical wave that's been with us for quite some time and is now fully into the Western Caribbean. It's just bringing shower and storm activity to Central America a little bit. Continues to be there across Cuba. This will eventually kind of work across the Yucatan Peninsula into the Bay of Campeche, and then have another shot to develop sometime in the next couple of days. But it's only going to have probably a day or two to develop, and then it's just going to run right into Mexico, and then any chances of development pretty much go away after that, just because it hits landmass. So after that, we have our main show, our Tropical Depression 2. So it's our second tropical depression of this hurricane season, and it is doing pretty well for a depression out there. And we're going to zoom into this here in a second. But this is our main show here. There's a lot of shower and storm activity well out ahead of this, but this isn't really anything that has to do with this. So this is what we're going to watch as it continues to strengthen, move across this portion of the Atlantic, and eventually into the Windward Islands. That's a very ugly arrow, but it's going to move in general this way, probably a little bit further north, so into the Windward Islands. But that's our main show. But guys, we also have this area right here, which is a tropical wave that now has a 40% chance to develop sometime in the next 7 days. They've actually bumped this up for the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. So these are the three areas. But of course, this one is the main show right here. Drawing some really ugly arrows tonight, but that is what's going on as far as a broad look. Now, of course, we zoom into our main system. All right, this is Tropical Depression 2. And you know, if you look at this, it's got a nice cyclonic spin to it. You know, I would look at this, if you told me this was a tropical storm, I would say, hey, I believe you, but it's a tropical depression. But if you look under the hood, it's not as organized as it looks. And I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. We're going to flip this to the pink and making sure it works here, and it does. So as you can tell, a nice spin to it. So no doubt you can see a nice cyclonic spin with it. Okay, and you have, get this back off, you have a nice breathing outflow. If you notice right here, you see some of these clouds right in here are kind of fanning out this way. You can really see it here. They're fanning out like that, has an excellent outflow over it. The upper level wind pattern is pretty favorable right now is because it has an upper ridge on top of it, and the flow at the bottom of this ridge on the upper portion of this storm, the upper levels of the atmosphere, is basically going right over the storm. So this is riding with it because this is moving east to west, and the flow up under this upper ridge up here, I'm just going to kind of draw an arrow, and we'll be able to take a better look at that here in a second. The flow at the bottom of this ridge also favors the same movement of the system. So the upper levels of the atmosphere is favorable for this to continue to thrive in that low shear environment. There's a nice upper outflow of the system, allowing for the storm to really breathe well, ventilate well. So in tune, that means it's continuing to fire steady convection right here in the middle of the storm. But I will mention that actual low-level circulation that we'll talk about a lot is probably more so like into here, because there is a little bit of easterly shear because there is a lot of flow coming out the east to the west. So it is being affected by a little bit of shear right over this area. So some of that mid-level convection, which is mainly right here, is kind of getting displaced away from that low-level circulation, which is probably more so right into here somewhere. So, there was a scan over this storm that indicated that this certainly does have a low-level circulation, and that's why they bumped it up to a depression. But regardless, we don't expect these systems in this life of these systems in this stage of its life to be extremely healthy. That's why it is a depression. But this is a pretty healthy tropical depression out here that's well on its way to becoming a tropical storm. So this is a closer look at it. Nice fanning out, nice outflow up under this upper ridge for sure. So this is continuously popping off that convection. We'll talk more about that upper wind pattern and things like that when we talk about sort of the atmospheric players and what's driving such a steady strengthening of this system that we have ongoing right now. So if we look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center, see if we have another update, and we don't. So they'll issue another advisory at about 11 p.m., but this is the latest advisory we have per the 5 p.m. update. This system is moving west at 17 miles per hour, 35 mile per hour tropical depression. If it bumps up to a 40 mile per hour system, that would make it Tropical Storm Beryl, which is our next named storm, our B name, located right here. See where it says S? That's where it's forecast to become a tropical storm, most likely sometime in the next 12 hours. In fact, by the time we wake up, do another video, this most likely will be Tropical Storm Beryl. But there's a chance it might not be. It might not happen until, maybe sometime in the next 24 hours. But you see where it says S here, Tropical Storm, 2 p.m. Saturday. Then forecast to become a hurricane, where it says H. That is where it says it's going to become a hurricane. Check this out. Well east of the Lesser Antilles and the Windward Islands. Around Sunday afternoon. Hurricane. It forecasts to make landfall as a hurricane Monday in the Windward Islands, and then still be a hurricane to the Caribbean, guys. South of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico. Watch out, Jamaica. I know I got some viewers from Jamaica. As of now, you are right smack in the middle of the cone for midway next week. This could change. This is going to tweak some. We know that this kind of bounces back and forth, does the windshield wiper effect. This is the latest cone. And I will mention here, another really great site to look at is called Zoom Earth, guys. Fantastic site that's free to you guys, the public. It's basically like combining Google Maps with the tropics. So ignore this area right in here because this is another area of interest we're going to talk about here in a second. But if you notice this entire region right here, this is kind of Zoom Earth's version of the National Hurricane Center's cone, right? So this system is right here, tropical depression, forecast to become a tropical storm tonight at 2 a.m. It's forecast to become Tropical Storm Beryl. Okay? Then by tomorrow afternoon, this is why I like this because you can really click the icons here. By tomorrow afternoon, a 45 mile per hour tropical storm. And then tomorrow night, a 60 mile per hour tropical storm. And then maybe by the time we get into Sunday afternoon, 75 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane. Okay? Strengthens even more. By 2 a.m. Monday, 85 mile per hour hurricane. And then, just inside the Eastern Caribbean, it's forecast to be a 100 mile per hour Category 2 hurricane. So this could be a Category 2 hurricane going right through the Windward Islands. Barbados may be a Cat 1, but this could strengthen more than what it's forecast to be. This is why this will tweak some, or it could, the forecasted strength could weaken some. But check this out. By the time it gets into the Eastern Caribbean, typically an area of the Caribbean that is not favorable for tropical development, we call this the graveyard of the Caribbean because the trade winds typically create a lot of shear for systems. 105 mile per hour Category 2 hurricane is forecasted by the experts. This isn't Mitch just hyping this up. This is from the National Hurricane Center, just south of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, which Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Haiti, is in the cone of uncertainty here. Okay? I mean, you're almost forecasting a major hurricane, almost. Okay? Higher in Category 2. And then forecast to weaken, maybe back into a Category 2, Category 1 hurricane as it approaches Jamaica. So Jamaica, you definitely got to watch. You got to watch this. So pretty wild stuff. Now we go back to this and we look at everything else. Check this out. Now, first off, let's talk about this. Invest 94L, which is a star wave located kind of tucked into the Western Caribbean, expected to jump over the Yucatan Peninsula, and sort of the main energy, the main vort here, is going to have a 40% chance to develop into the Bay of Campeche. All right, sometimes maybe Saturday night into early Sunday. All right, so they've actually bumped this from a 30 to a 40% chance in the last update here about 20, 30 minutes ago. So we got to watch to see if this is sneaky into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. But, this is our wave behind Tropical Depression 2, guys. Has a 40% chance to develop sometime in the next 7 days in the same area that Tropical Depression 2 is in right now. And listen, the models, and I'll kind of talk about this on and off, the models like the idea of this developing right behind what's going to eventually be Beryl. Okay? So pretty wild stuff, incredibly active out there. So let's compare model, guys. The first thing we'll look at is the GFS. And we'll start off this evening. It's initializing as 1,006 millibar low pressure. And what does it have this at right now? I think it shows us down here. There's probably somewhere I can look really fast, but in fact, I know exactly where to look here. I'm going to kind of jump around here. Right now, it's 1,007 millibar low. So the GFS is doing pretty well. It's actually initializing this 1 millibar stronger. But anyways, it's doing pretty well with initiation on the GFS. Okay? We move this in time. Let's take it all the way into tomorrow evening. So this is Saturday evening. Saying it's going to be a 999 sub 1,000 millibar low. Probably a tropical storm at this point. This will be Tropical Storm Beryl. Take it to Sunday morning. It deepens pretty steadily overnight tomorrow night. Sunday morning, 986 millibar low. This would probably be approaching low in Category 1 status. And then here it comes as it approaches the Windward Islands, really close to Barbados. Monday morning, it's a 970 millibar low. That would make it probably a Category 2 hurricane or a high-end Category 1. Look at the other wave right behind it. Okay, this is already almost another tropical storm, which if this is the way it occurs, it would be Tropical Storm Chris, which is our next named storm. But you keep this going, guys, and we get this into Monday evening. This is getting now inside the Eastern Caribbean. It's getting west of the Lesser Antilles. It's a 966 millibar low. That is getting well into a mid-grade, high-end Category 2 hurricane with this system right behind it. Okay, and then it develops this into a tropical storm. And we're going to talk more on this here in a second. And then hits the same area again as a tropical storm, Chris. Okay, but if we put our focus back on what's going to be Beryl, all right, we keep this going. We get into Tuesday morning, 970 millibar low, well south of Puerto Rico. I think for the most part, Puerto Rico is going to be safe for now. Don't want to say for certain, though. And then we get into Tuesday evening. This is south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, Hispaniola. 974, still a hurricane. I think this tries to feel some sort of weakness here in the ridge, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But I think if it gets this close to Hispaniola, we know, if you don't, I'm about to tell you, we got some higher mountain ranges and mountaintops on Hispaniola. Okay? Certainly the geographical features on this area are definitely going to affect the circulation of this system, even if the main heart of this system doesn't go over it. Still, the wraparound circulation will have to basically go over these mountaintops, and that will disrupt kind of the flow of this system. That's why it dramatically weakens in 6 hours. As you can tell, you see it goes from 980 to 997 on the GFS. Pulls this north enough to where it makes a technical landfall into Haiti. Okay? And then this kind of gets between Cuba, Hispaniola, and Jamaica as a 998 millibar tropical storm sometime next Wednesday. And as you can tell already, the GFS pulls this north of the cone. Okay, cone is, in this area where the L is, but, this is on the northern side of that cone. And then it makes a landfall into Cuba, and then Cuba has some high mountaintops too, gets shredded, and basically turns into nothing. But look at the system behind it. Deepens this into a hurricane, a 980 millibar hurricane. This would be Hurricane Chris if this is the way it plays out. Thursday morning, this deepens this into a hurricane also and goes over just about the same areas next Thursday morning. And then this makes landfall as some kind of tropical system into Hispaniola, Haiti, Dominican Republic, wherever it's going to be. We're not sure. Let's just say Hispaniola. Okay? A lot going on, guys. And then it shreds it, and we don't know what happens after that. This is getting a week out. Okay? What about the European? European, and I'm going to say this right at the dot, I favor the GFS as far as the short-term strengthening of this tropical system. The main one we're talking about. Okay? Just because we're seeing what it looks like on satellite right now, how it looks like out there in the ocean, this evening, it looks very well, looks very healthy. But the European does say, hey, and let's see if we actually have the 18Z European. We do not. So we just got to stick with the 12Z. But, the European says, hey, it's 1,005 millibar low tomorrow morning. I think it could be stronger than that. Man, what we got going on here? Come on, work with me here. And then we get into Sunday morning. It gradually strengthens this into about 1,001 millibar low. This will be a tropical storm. And then it gets this Monday morning into a 999 millibar low. So this is definitely favoring a weaker scenario, which does not favor what the National Hurricane Center is saying. So I almost thought about not even showing the Euro. I think it's underdoing the strength. But if it ends up being this week, this will be this week in strength. This will end up being a major win from the Euro because this is keeping us much weaker. Takes it right into Barbados. It's just a tropical storm, still a named storm. Then gets into the Caribbean and, just a 998 millibar low. And we got to watch the wave behind it. It's not as aggressive with this wave behind as the GFS does, but it shows a clear wave behind it. And then you look at the European. There's what would be Tropical Storm Beryl, not Hurricane Beryl at this point. And it just kind of keeps it at the same strength, guys. Just kind of, just meanders us around as 1,000, to 998, 999 millibar low. Basically tropical storm status, cruises across the, almost at the Pacific, across the Caribbean. Kind of affects Jamaica sometimes Wednesday. I think Wednesday might be the day for you folks in Jamaica of next week. And goes south of you guys as just a tropical storm. But the European does show this kind of strengthening, then weakening, and then eventually it makes landfall into the Yucatan Peninsula as a tropical storm, maybe low-end hurricane next Friday morning. Okay? One thing to note, stronger systems are always going to want to gain latitude. Okay? They're always going to try to fight to go north more. They will always try to fight against a ridge, and they will always try to just control their own destiny more, if that makes any sense. So if you do have a stronger system earlier on, it's probably going to go a little bit further north, especially if there is a weakness in this ridge right in here like I'm about to show you. Okay, so that's comparing, the GFS with the European. Now, if you look at the GFS ensemble, which, makes up 21 members and puts them all on the screen, and they're going to be so clustered up in the beginning of this that all you're going to see is just an orange cloud down here. Okay, but these are numbers. If you put on your bifocals and look at this, you're going to see 97s, 99s, 01s. If you see an 01, that stands for a 1,001 millibar low. 99 would be a 999 millibar low. But these are all pretty clustered up. They all like the idea of hitting Barbados and the Windward Islands and all of them, and then getting into the Caribbean Monday. Okay? And then we have to watch after this. There's a little bit of a spread. Some are a little bit deeper down here in the Caribbean. Some actually, a couple members actually hit Puerto Rico, get into Hispaniola, but they do start to split a little bit. You don't see as many members down here, deeper in the Caribbean anymore. You have a lot of members going right towards Jamaica. You got some going right into the Greater Antilles, and then you got the signal behind this too. This is our wave that has that 40% chance to develop behind this. And then this kind of splits up. You got some stronger members to get, that starts. Even got one member that tries to get into the Bahamas. We'll get close to the Bahamas. You got a lot of members in the Western Caribbean. What's going to happen after this? There's members back here too. This is from the wave behind it. And after that, everything spreads out. Gets wide open after that. So, you look at the hurricane model, the H-half model. A lot of people say, hey, don't look at this, right now until this really turns into a tropical storm. But this is going to be a tropical storm by the time we wake up, most likely. So I'm going to look at the H-half model, the H-half-A model, which I think is one of the more reliable ones to look at. But I'll tell you, some of these hurricane models, they really overdo this. But initializing tomorrow morning is 1,002 millibar low pressure. I think it could be sub 1,000 by the time we get into tomorrow morning. But we take it into tomorrow evening. It's a 999 millibar low, and this is reflecting winds at just above the surface. So you can tell that this is really the northern side of this system looks to be the strongest. But we won't really pay too much attention to that right now. But we start to get into Monday morning. There's a period, I think, Sunday into the Monday morning time frame where I think this has a chance to strengthen. I don't know if it's going to be enough to call it RI, which is rapid intensification, but I think it will have an opportunity to strengthen pretty quickly in that time frame because it's going to have probably one of the best low shear environments of the life of the storm. Barbados right into here. Okay, this is going to affect areas like Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, the Windward Islands. Heads up. Who is this going to make an exact landfall on? Who knows? Somewhere in the Windward Islands. It might, slide right between two different islands. But then this sneaks into the Eastern Caribbean. This is all the Lesser Antilles here. And what is it going to do after that? Not sure. It kind of maintains strength as around a 970 millibar low. And we'll just kind of stop it here. But this is a potent looking hurricane. So why such the favorable environment for this system this early in hurricane season and what typically is an unfavorable part of the Atlantic this time of the year, this early in hurricane season? It's late June, for crying out loud, right? So one thing you'll notice, I'm going to try to draw on this. Let's just start off for tomorrow morning. I'm going to draw on this. If you see, this is winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Okay, 200 millibars, 40,000 feet up in the air. If you look really closely, you see these lines with the arrows going like this, pointing like this, and they kind of go around like this, and then they kind of wrap around like that. That is an upper ridge right here. So our system right here is centered at kind of the southern to southwest flank of this upper ridge. This is our system, right? So, this system is moving. It's moving what? Right? East to west. Okay? So the winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere is also moving east to west. Okay? So this is actually working with the system as far as the actual forward motion with the system. So they're kind of working in tandem, if you will. And at the same time, this is pushing air out away from the system, especially like on the western side. So if you look at these arrows, you kind of got, these arrows pointing away from the system, also right into here. So this actually has an excellent upper outflow, an excellent upper wind pattern right ahead of it right now. I wouldn't call it an anti-cyclonic flow or anything like that, but the upper wind pattern of this is very supportive. Now, I will say the reason it's struggling with a little bit of easterly shear is because, you do have a flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere that's kind of going right into sort of the east-northeast flank of the storm right now. So if you actually look at the satellite, you see a little bit of a void there, which is why some of that mid-level convection is actually getting displaced away from where we think the low-level circulation is. So that's why you're dealing with a little bit of shear there. Sometimes, too much of that easterly flow does not vibe well with the system, creates a little bit of shear. Shear is always a tricky thing, okay? But in general, this is in position in a very favorable upper wind pattern. Okay, so you get this back off your screen. You notice it's kind of the same deal, right? You continue. There's probably going to be times in the system where listen, even when you have like a healthy hurricane, it's still struggling with some sort of shear, some sort of dry air. I mean, you don't get perfect conditions. Perfect is just almost non-existent in the weather world. Okay, it's pretty much non-existent in just about anything, right? But this continues, and once it gets right here, excellent conditions. I mean, it has very supportive conditions. I mean, remember I told you kind of that Sunday night into Monday morning time frame, very low shear environment. You look like you have like an excellent outflow being pushed out from the storm. If you look right here, the arrows are going this way, arrows are going this way, arrows are going that way. So basically, the upper winds and the upper levels of the atmosphere are kind of almost flowing in the it's an anticyclonic flow. And of course, in the upper hemisphere, it's a cyclonic flow. Okay, so this is doing well. This is a very healthy system, low shear environment, and there's definitely going to be winds getting pushed out from the system. And when you have that, it basically allows more air to rise. Okay, when air is getting pushed out away from the system, whether it's getting pushed from west to east, east to west, it allows for more air to rise. When it's pushed away, it allows more air to rise. So if you have the continuous rising of air in these tropical systems, you're continuously getting shower and storm activity. So this creates a very moist environment and a very compact, moist environment to protect that low-level circulation. So upper wind pattern supports continuous moisture for this system, if that makes sense. So this is relative humidity, just precipitation. This just indicates moist or dry air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And if you notice, sure, there's a lot of dry air on the northern side of the system. There's typically a lot of dry air out here in the Atlantic this time of the year. But if you notice right here in the green, this thing is compact and a nice, firm, moist bubble. It's really protected. And guys, this will do nothing but be more and more evident over the next few days over the weekend. In fact, this pocket of moist air really expands even more. And you can actually tell how the environment increases. Like when you get right here, this is a massive moist bubble. You know, there might be a little dry air trying to get entangled into it right here, but it's not getting to that low-level circulation, that heart of the system. So I think that this could be really prime as it's getting into the Windward Islands. And then you see the system behind it. Very compact bubble of moist air. There's dry air in between both. This could actually whiplash the system with a little bit of shear. Happens a lot when you have one system following another. But both of these systems are really compact in a very moist environment. And it's not being affected by much dry air because of the favorable upper wind pattern and lack of shear with this, disrupting the circulation, allowing for dry air to get in. Okay? But one thing we will watch as we get into the Caribbean, something known as a TUT, like a persistent upper level low out here. And as the system continues, it looks like the environment remains pretty favorable, as you can tell. In the Caribbean, you have a nice, excellent outflow. But as you get right into here, okay, if you look really closely, you got these arrows diving down into here, and then they dramatically kind of shoot back up this way in the upper levels of the atmosphere. That's what we call a TUT. Okay, this is kind of like an upper level low in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And so what that is doing is that's creating some shear kind of out the west right here, and this is disrupting kind of that easterly flow of the system. So if this is moving into winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere going the opposite direction, then it is definitely going to disrupt it. And it's probably not only in the upper levels too, it's in the other levels of the atmosphere too, the lower levels. So this would kind of head into probably whether it's going to go like this way over Jamaica, or whether it's going to go like this way, or either it's right over like Hispaniola. It is probably going to encounter more shear right in here because the upper wind pattern certainly shifts because this TUT brings most likely some shear into this situation. There's typically a lot of shear in the Caribbean this time of the year anyway. So, and another thing, guys, if this obviously goes right over Hispaniola, then it's got higher elevations, and those higher elevations are just going to really just rip this system apart. We call it the shredder in areas of Cuba and the Dominican Republic and Haiti and just Hispaniola in general. So we'll have to watch to see where this goes. Okay, if it remains really deep in the Caribbean, we'll have to see what happens. But if this gets strong right into this area, and I would more so circle right into this area, as strong as it's forecast to be, then this is probably going to try to go a little bit further north, more so like west, almost like west-northwest, if you will. So we'll get this back off your screen here, and then we'll talk about the flow. And remember, we're talking about this upper ridge, but this is ridging in the mid-levels here. So this is your Bermuda High. This is a persistent ridge. The reds and even the dark reds, like the burgundy colors, is where you have a stronger ridge in place. So the reason this is our system right in here, the reason this is going to continue to sort of move more so just east to west is because this influence of this ridge up here. And we know with ridging, like for example, flow is going around this ridge like this. Okay. And it's going to go like this. There's pockets of stronger ridging that the flow is going to go different over, but it's kind of coming around here and then it's coming back around here. So the flow around this ridge is what's pushing this. That's what's pushing this sort of east to west. Okay. Now, when we continue to keep this moving in time, all right, it's moving, it's continuously kind of moving more so just east to west. Don't let me say west to east because I might, but east to west. You see this little kind of weakness right here? There's a little bit of weakness right here in the ridging. Kind of a more stronger area of ridging right into here, and of course the stronger area of Bermuda High up here. A little bit of weakness right into here. I think this system tries to fill that, and of course with a strengthening storm, I think that's going to try to make this storm try to sneak a little bit further north because there is a weaker kind of influence of ridging right into here. So that's going to, I think, allow that to pull a little bit further north, and I think that it could start to affect areas of the Greater Antilles because of that. Now, a weaker system is going to probably go, if it's weaker right in here, if it's something like the Euro, then it's probably going to go just more so continuously east to west across the Caribbean. Stronger system, it's going to probably try to feel that weakness and probably gain latitude. So that's what's steering the system. Now I want to talk about impacts real quick. This is from the National Hurricane Center, where you see this red area here. This is where you have a 70 to 80% chance to see tropical storm force wind gusts. Okay, and I mean this is right in the Windward Islands. Barbados just south of you guys, getting into the Windward Islands. We'll really kind of get really focusing on the islands here in the next day, probably starting tomorrow into Sunday. Okay, when we know kind of where the actual center of the circulation is going to go over. But I mean, there's already a chance of tropical storm winds, and this is between now and 2 p.m. Friday, into Jamaica, into areas of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, even getting into eastern Cuba. So you look at the potential rainfall from this, and this will tweak some. 4 to 6 inches of rain is already possible. In like Barbados, which is equivalent to 100 to 150 millimeters of rain. And 2 to 4 inches, 50 to 100 millimeters of rain just in areas of the Windward Islands. We'll see how much this changes in the coming days. But that's all I got, guys. I hope I explained that in a way where you guys can understand. It's always a learning thing for me. An awesome person to watch is the Tropical Tidbits YouTube channel. A guy named Levi runs it. He's the guy that created Tropical Tidbits site. I learned so much from him. I kind of model what I do off what he does. And I don't know of anybody that explains it as good as he does. I try to give my best shot at it. But man, if you want to I never will shy away from promoting somebody else's YouTube channel. But you should check out his channel too. He's probably not going to get as super detailed as me because I show you way more graphics. He just kind of is able to explain things in more simpler graphics. Because he's, pretty much just an all-out expert at what he does. But definitely check out his channel if you want just a different viewage and a vantage point at what I'm trying to say in this video. So God bless all y'all. Y'all have a wonderful night, and we'll do it all again in the morning.